Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I know people are taking their seats. We want to go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Kendra Roberts, and I am the VP of Operations for Human Good Affordable Housing, and I am also the chairperson for Housing California. Welcome to the final day of our 2025 annual conference. We hope that you all have had an amazing time so far. Yesterday was an amazing day. We had amazing panels. We had our Housing Justice Awards kicking off this week. We had our keynote speaker, Manuel Pastor, who was just amazing, the data that he shared. We're just really glad to have you all in this space. We are looking forward to diving back in with all of you all for another great day today. I will now pass the mic to Julie Lowe, Housing California's Deputy Director of Programs, who will help moderate this session. Julie started with Housing California this past November. She has experience working in the nonprofit, government, and philanthropic sectors on education, anti-poverty, and homelessness issues. Her more recent roles include serving as the executive officer of California's Interagency Council on Homelessness, where she oversaw the development of several rounds of homelessness housing funding programs. I would like to welcome Julie, known as Jazzy Lowe, to the stage.
Good morning. Good morning! You all get to go home soon, but I am excited, and I'm eager for you all to meet our panelists. But before we do, we're gonna have a brief performance, and I'm gonna pass the mic to Big Bay Inednima from Housing Works.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? That's fantastic. We're happy to be here. We have a very, very important message for you all to share. I'll introduce my colleagues after they share their message with you, but these are all frontline workers. And these individuals also are people with lived experience, including myself. And we are here to share a very important message with you, being that this is a housing conference. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of those that are doing the work on the front lines in the developments that are being built that house individuals in permanent supportive housing. These are the individuals that work with those individual communities. And their message is very, very important, and we don't want to forget about those that are on the front line because they are the bread and butter of the services that are being provided by individuals experiencing homelessness, mental health issues, drug addiction, and everything else that comes with and in our sector. So with no further delay, I would like to ask everyone's attention and to be open-minded to hear this message from the minds of the front line.
I simply cannot do this anymore. I have nothing left to give. I feel like I'm killing myself slowly so others can live. Is the reward greater than the risk? I used to think so, but now I don't know. I feel like I'm falling slow into a bottomless pit. I mean, I have problems too, but they can't be addressed because I'm advocating for you and she and he and them and they. But what is left for me and my family at the end of the day?
Who really cares anyways? As long as my documentation is okay. But damn, what about me? I too need therapy. I too need a good night's sleep. I too need healthy food to eat. I too need clothing and shoes on my feet. My reality? I'm just one paycheck away from being back on the damn streets. But at work, I'm supposed to show compassion and empathy? Seriously? How much more can you give others when your tank is on empty? This system is blind to our struggles on the front line, with no concern how it impacts our bodies, our spirits, or our minds.
Chronic stress, burnout, or breakdown is lurking. It's just a matter of time. But never mind. I'll just be replaced, and the tape will just rewind with a fresh new face that's motivated, energized, and kind. Before they come to realize the toll it takes on their lives. But what baffles me is that I know the powers that be, can clearly see this systemic catastrophe. My supervisor says his hands are tied. We just have to meet our obligations contractually. But what does it say in those contracts about supporting me and my mental capacity? What does it say about helping me navigate my own trauma and tragedy?
As a frontline worker, am I also entitled to trauma-informed care? Or do I continue to give what I'm not receiving, which is not balanced nor fair? But after all the complaining and nothing changing, I have little motivation to share. The weight of my burdens are on me and my participants to bear. Is this supposed to solve the problem? Au contraire. It only spreads the infections because wounds cannot heal without fresh air.
I'm barely keeping my head above water every day, fighting hopelessness and despair. But who am I? I guess I'm just someone who really cares. I have bounced around from organization to organization and have seen nothing different. But yet, and still, I show up every day in the lives of others to try to make a small difference. If I could afford to pay for staff, wellness, and work options, I would. And I'd reduce the ridiculous amount of documentation too, if I could. Little things go a long way. But who am I to say? My status is day to day. I love what I do. But how much of this dream of helping others should I realistically pursue? Who is it really up to?
Is it
me?
Or
is it you?
Michael De La Torre, Yana Johnson, Maria De Jesus Gomez, Albert Scott, and Jose Mesa. And we are Housing Works from LA. Thank you.
Nope. Oh, hi. I'm gonna get myself together, guys. You don't want weepy Julie. I'm gonna now invite our panelists to join us. Please join me on the stage. Ooh, that's a bright light. Okay, so I'm very eager for you to meet this panel. But before I pass it to our panelists to do some introductions, I wanted to set the stage for why we chose to do our closing plenary for the conference this year on this topic. So let's start with their theme, solidarity in action. What does that actually mean? There are a few things that I think about, but I'll get to that. First, it's a focus on action. Solidarity is a good start. It's our intention. But solidarity in action means moving towards something that is harder to demonstrate that solidarity in what we actually do. Second, solidarity in action is a team sport. It's not just about individual issues. It's about leveraging the rich tapestry of knowledge, skills, and experiences of our field and holding each other accountable as we work to transform institutions and systems. And finally, this is where I'm going to get real. Solidarity in action isn't just about the actions themselves. It's about changing the terms of how we take those actions. It's about shifting power so that the needs, experiences, and leadership of people who have been marginalized become our center. Do you all know that if you look up what marginalized means in a dictionary, it means a person or a group of people who are treated as insignificant. And right now, too many decisions about how to tackle homelessness and housing unaffordability are made by people in power, not by those who are experiencing it. So when we talk about solidarity in action, we're also saying that it's time to shift that power. I am grateful to be part of the community of people who have experienced homelessness that are working in this field. I'm immensely proud to be here today, especially with our opening, to be here and have the opportunity to share this panel with you. My experience of homelessness shapes my approach to everything I do in my work. Growing up, my family struggled through deep poverty. We stayed in shelters throughout Southern California, sometimes in motel rooms along Beach Boulevard in Orange County that rented on a weekly basis. I went out on my own early in my adolescence, and by the time I was 22, I was living under a freeway and in alleys in San Francisco. Those experiences have shaped every single professional decision I've ever made and everything I've continued to contribute to the field that I work in with you all. For example, when I was the ED of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, I paid close attention to those details, the kinds of things that you only know if you've been there. We launched a family homelessness grant program, and for me, the term family means something different. It's not just about blood ties, it's about those that you feel kinship in. And when we launched that program, one of the things that was really important to me was to bring forth my lived experience to make sure that the program was launched in a way that could be inclusive of families, not just those that have blood relations. Another example is an issue that is very current right now, this need that we have as a field to push back on efforts to further criminalize people living in unsheltered settings. Let's get a clap on that. People living outside have been saying this for a long time. And I felt the same way when I was out there, which is how I ended up living under the 80 freeway for many years. When I was being offered shelter, what came through my head was that I can't go to that shelter. I don't feel safe in that shelter. I don't have any measure of privacy or dignity. It's far from the people I'm bonded with. It lacks basic autonomy that should be expected for any person, and is not a place that I can depend on staying at. And so I am one of the people that we hear about on the news that refuse shelter, and that's just not true. This is an issue where we must believe the people living through the experience and listen and deliver on what they need. And one of the many reasons I'm actually so grateful to be part of Housing California, as it's been clear that we must not criminalize people and rather pursue real solutions. Love a clap. The question I think about often is, what would our systems look like if we engaged people living through what we were trying to solve, not just to recount the harms after the harms have been done, but to identify the actual problems and to create our solutions? Yeah, I'm getting a head nod from Lamont, which is always a good sign. The panelists that I'm with today can all speak to how their own experiences show up in this work and share their expertise on what we should be talking about today. My hope is that as we navigate these uncertain times, we do so by also looking to those with lived experiences of homelessness to help craft our path forward so that we can all act in solidarity to shift power back into our communities. I'm going to start by asking our panelists to introduce themselves and what brings them to the work they're doing, and we'll start with you, Ocean Blue Coast.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ocean Blue Coast. A lot of people here know me as Anoxel Rama. I recently changed my name. 18 years ago, I was an internal LGBTQ HIV-positive refugee from Texas, seeking a better life and freedom from employment and healthcare discrimination. And I'm bringing that up because I want you to keep in mind that there are going to be people fleeing to our sanctuary cities, and there are no humane ticket home for those people that have nothing to return to. I was employed for a period of time, but I was in a toxic relationship. I had mental and physical health deterioration, and I ended up homeless for several years. I fell into organizing around the quality of life of people living in single-room occupancy hotels, and I was tapped as part of our We Are All Organizers program to learn how to do community organizing. I worked at HomeRise, public policy and community organizing for several years, organizing around the Fair Chance Ordinance to remove the felony conviction box off of applications for employment and housing, and increasing inclusionary housing and Free City College. I currently work with Senior and Disability Action. We organize and educate seniors and disabled people in San Francisco to live independently. We have healthcare organizing, transit organizing, housing. We have a peer advocacy referral program, and we do a senior and disabled survival school and university where we teach seniors and disabled people how to access resources and organize for change. As part of that, I work on an SRO work group, and we've been working on the issue of broken SRO elevators for many years. As you can imagine, if you're a senior and disabled person living on the 12th floor of a building where you have to share your bathroom and kitchen, and you're no longer able to access your groceries or your doctor's appointments, and you're literally trapped for weeks on end, something has to be done about that. And we were able to get $10 million allocated in the city budget for elevator repairs, but it was going to get chopped during the budget season. And so we took seniors and disabled people and took over the city hall elevators during lunchtime to prove the issue that seniors and disabled people are impacted by these issues. And we were able to save those funding. So, but that's just a drop in the bucket to the need of investing in our aging affordable housing infrastructure, and that's a whole nother workshop, so I'm going to pass it back.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Margot Velez,
And I'm just going to read from my notes here because I have some really important points, and I don't want to forget any of my golden little nuggets. So I work with Resident United Network, otherwise known as RUN, and Housing Experience Advocacy Leadership, which is also known as HEAL. Associated with the San Diego Housing Federation, I started advocating for housing and homelessness over 10 years now, when Miss Joyce Roberts told me to get ready and come to a RUN meeting. At the time, I was living in an affordable housing complex, and the management was corrupt and trying to unlawfully evict families, 80 families to be exact. The company went to court and no one got evicted, but the management lost their property, so I had to move out. That started my 2-year journey of being unhoused and experience with housing insecurity. For myself and my 2 daughters, very young daughters. We stayed in shelters and stayed in a hotel stairwell because the shelters I didn't feel safe. The food was very it was bad. I ended up getting a stomach infection called H. pylori. So we took our chances and got away from the bed bugs, the lice, and the drama from shelters and lived in a stairwell for 2 years of my friend's hotel that he owned. Unfortunately, he couldn't put me in it because he was renovating it at the time, and for insurance purposes, we stayed in the hotel stairwell. I call myself a blind spotter because I didn't fit any criteria of any housing program. I didn't have trauma. I didn't have domestic violence. My children weren't abused or teen mothers. The list goes on and on. But unfortunately, my little family did not fit a checkbox. So with that happening, I worked hard for 32nd Street Naval Station. I worked for the government, you guys, and I couldn't get an apartment. I couldn't find anybody to do anything because I was the only one working and didn't make 3 and 4 times the amount of rent. I found another place in desperation on a sight unseen and rented it. It was uninhabitable. Raw sewage in the water, infested with different types of bugs, not just roaches, but spiders and crickets that had horsehair worms in them. So from there, I decided to move, and me working with the government, there was a retired veteran that was leaving to go live with his family, and he said, "Hey, Margot, I have a cute little house. You and your girls still need a place to stay?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I thought I found my little forever home because we were going to have a nice little agreement. What happened that rarely happens in San Diego, California, it rained, and it rained like nobody's business. The little forever home that I was going to be in flooded to nothing. It's just rubble now. So once again, I'm in my unhoused journey. Fortunately, I stayed with my my daughter. My eldest daughter told me to come, and that's where the girls and I are. But with RUN and HEAL, they taught me a lot of things. Even when I was unhoused, I was attending meetings and going to these meetings. They taught me about policies and bills, and you know, they say ignorance is bliss. No, I got bit by the housing bug, and I left my job, and I started wanting to find out more. I didn't know the difference between an assembly bill, a Senate bill. I didn't know any of that. But with RUN and HEAL, they taught me these things. And I got to speak to these legislators that I'm seeing on TV. I'm really talking to them. And now 10 years later, they know me by face and name. Hey, Margot, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how's it going? You know, it's very exciting. So now it's driving me to try and author my own bill now. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to do something powerful for someone. You know how you pay rent or mortgage to somebody? And it's been forced and pushed back, but you can, it's along that lines of trying to get like a rent-to-own kind of spot for private properties. So look out for that and try and help support me. I really am honored to be here with everyone. Thank you all for coming to hear us talk about our experience. And I'll pass it over to Sabrina.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sabrina Fuentes. I sit up here. I am an employee. Hi, everybody. I'm Sabrina Fuentes. I work for HEPAC, HIV Education Prevention Program of Alameda County. We are a harm reduction agency. Because of my work at that program, I have been able to get many platforms, many tables, many commissions, and many boards. I sit at them with the harm reduction voice. I have experienced the family court system, the criminal court system. I have substance use. I'm currently 13 years where I haven't engaged, but I do have a history and a knowledge of what that substance use roller coaster can be like. I have been through the shelter system, the SRO system, moved on through a housing certificate system. I say I have 30 years of research in the many different areas that I try to speak in and advocate for. And I'm just glad to be here today. I'm glad to be able to bring a harm reduction voice to these areas because it was harm reduction that saved my life. It was the interactions I've had with people that have caused me to be able to speak, to know that my voice would be heard, the compassion and the kindness that I was shown at a needle exchange is what brought me to where I'm at today. So I will do everything I can to advocate for harm reduction, to bring those principles in everything and everywhere I am able to. And I thank everybody for allowing me to be here today. I could speak on the different boards, commissions, committees that I'm on, but as I was writing on this piece of paper, and you can see how much writing there is, I just had to keep adding them. And one of the gifts I believe I was also afforded is to be in Alameda County, because I know that every seat I sit in is not a token seat. My voice has been heard, and it is put to use, and I will return this to this gentleman. Oh.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Lamont Green, and every time I am in California, it feels like a full circle because my homelessness started in California after I got out of the military, Fresno, California, to be specific, and sometimes on the streets of Sacramento, all different parts, and then I finally ended up in the Tenderloin district, and that's where I hit rock bottom. But I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm a part of the Gullah Geechee people. The Gullah people were the first, slaves that were brought here, captured and brought here. And rice was the first main crop before cotton. And West Africans knew how to grow rice very well, which is actually a very difficult thing to raise. And so we were on these little sea islands and didn't have a lot of interaction with Europeans, and so we were able to keep a lot of our culture and language and identities. I'm just so proud to be a part of the Gullah Geechee people. However, being raised in the Deep South as a boy who didn't know he was gay, a black boy who didn't know he was gay, and I'm in my 50s, you can only imagine the messages that I was getting from a child that who I am is wrong and that I am not good enough. And so I joined the military, and I was in the Navy, and I was a Russian cryptolinguist in the Navy, and I was in the don't ask, don't tell Navy, right, military. So there, not only do you have society telling you that you're not good enough, but you also have the state telling you that who you are is wrong and you are not good enough. And I believed those lies. I didn't deal with them, but after I got out the military, I didn't want to go back to South Carolina. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very good at saving money, so I had a whole bunch of money saved up and was trying to figure out life, and I got invited to a party, and there I was introduced to crack cocaine. And I had never done any type of drug, y'all. I was like so naive and like a church choir boy, as they would call it. And with that hit, it felt like all my issues and problems went away, right? And that's the deception of, of drugs. But I was on a roll, and I went through all of my money I had saved up in about 3 months, and crack cocaine became too expensive, so then I switched to meth. And then I was living in my vehicle, and then my vehicle had gotten impounded, and I couldn't afford to get it out, and I ended up on the streets of San Francisco, doing things I never would have imagined to get that next high. And I had major psychosis, and there was a suicide attempt that landed me in an inpatient hospital, and I was very violent and psychotic. So for about 6 months, I was in basically a locked unit, a VA locked unit, chemically restrained. But that intervention in some ways was good because they had a special program at American Lake VA in the Pacific Northwest. And that's how I ended up in the Seattle-Tacoma area. And it was for people experiencing homelessness and co-occurring disorder, mental health, et cetera, et cetera. And it was actually a wonderful program that they were offering. And it came with vocational rehabilitation and all these things, right? So I share my story to say that recovery is possible. And many of these supports that people need, aren't there. I was one of the lucky ones, being a veteran. And so went to social work school, ended up working in government, and ended up doing a lot of community organizing that really started around youth homelessness, and got to work with Jesse and Familiar Faces Initiative in King County. That was all a kind of criminal justice reform. Let's stop sending people to jail, right, and have a health, right? Let's stop spending all this money and having people cycle in and out of jail using a criminal legal system response when people really what they need is a health and housing response, and it's much cheaper. And so Jesse was such a huge mentor. And I just want to thank Housing California for you all doing this, because during these times that we're in right now, many organizations are scrubbing their websites or doing this or doing that in fear of retaliation from this administration. And so I appreciate like Housing California, Cal ICH, Destination Home. There's too many great organizations in California to name that you're kind of standing up, like being like a Costco, right? Not to give, I don't have any stocks in Costco, but let's be a Costco instead of a Target. So I had to get that dig in. But I am so honored to be here. And I just want to, I have to thank God, right? I know sometimes I'm not trying to be religious or evangelize or anything like that. I'm more of a spiritual person than a religious person, but I just thank all my ancestors, all the amazing people like you all who do this work every day. The turning point for me actually happened in my recovery is when there was this case manager that really saw me, and they told me, because I was carrying so much shame and hatred, right, due to internalized racism and internalized heterosexism, And she looked at me and she said, "Do you know that God loves you just the way you are?" And I had never been told that because I didn't feel like I was worthy of love due to all the internalized stuff. And then she made a referral to a chaplain, a minister, who also happened to be gay, and I began to reclaim a lot of, my healing and power and identity. So thank you all for listening.
So I want to thank our panelists for sharing, and I want to point out a couple things. First, your hot take that California being the Costco of national politics is excellent. Second, the stories that we're telling here, they seem hard, but the reason we share them is because it's incredibly important to belong here, right? Someone told me a while ago that the opposite of fitting in is belonging. And fitting in means that we walk around in our professional worlds. I think we all shared for you all that we're quite accomplished professionally. We've done a lot of things. But part of what's really important when we think about solidarity in action and really shifting where the center of our power is, that folks can feel seen and talk openly about the lives we've had as well. And so next I'm going to shift to some questions, tap on some of that expertise. I'm going to start with you, Lamont. One of the ways we first met is through your work at Technical Assistance Collaborative, doing hardcore TA for HUD-funded programs. And in the current environment that we're in, there's just a lot of choices to be made. There's a lot of threats in front of us. And I'm curious from you, how do we do all those things, manage all the things we're afraid of, but not lose sight of our center and needing to continue to invest in and really focus on the lived experiences of people experiencing homelessness?
Thank you, Julie. And I brought something I wanted to share as a quote that is a powerful reminder for me. So a question to you all. How many of you here are gatekeepers? Raise your hand if you're a gatekeeper. There are no hands raised, just a few? Okay, I see some. Okay, right? But I would say that every single one of us, we are a gatekeeper. Sometimes we think, well, I don't have a position of power. I'm not a director or a manager, but you have a voice. You could use your voice. You can rally. You can influence. So we all are actually gatekeepers. We all have power. Some of us may not recognize that power. And so the People's Institute, they do these amazing Undoing Institutional Racism trainings. And so I want to share something from the People's Institute, because I think this is key to ground ourselves in when we're doing the work of shifting power. Is first to recognize our power as a gatekeeper, and then to be a liberated gatekeeper. So this is what the People's Institute, what they say here. Whether we intend it or not, we serve as agents of social control, holding power over people in poor communities, rather than always engaging with communities in ways that restore decision-making power and establish mutual accountability. Although we intend to be accountable to populations most impacted, we are, in reality, accountable to the institutions that pay us, credential us, evaluate us, and ultimately decide whether to promote or fire us. In this sense, gatekeepers often find themselves trapped and conflicted. It is through working from an anti-racist frame, embodying anti-oppression values, and being accountable, being in principled, accountable relationship with communities most impacted, that we can become liberated gatekeepers, recognizing the power and influence we have to be agents of transformation. And so there's a quote by Ron Chisholm with the People's Institute, and he says that, poor people, they don't need more programming. They need their power back, right? This is about power. And Just Lead Washington also has a quote that's so important. It's like a mantra for us lived experience folks. that those closest to the problem are closest to the solutions, but what? Furthest from power and resources. Well, that doesn't make any kind of sense. Because you mean to tell me you're going to design something for me when you don't even know me and my experience? We can't give what we don't have, right? And so we really need to interrogate the kind of hyper-professionalism and arrogance and saviorism that is so redundant, right? And get humble and share power with those most impacted, because then we can design solutions that really work. And a big part of that, y'all, we gotta have an analysis, because we can do a lot of harm. So we must analyze power to understand why there are so many Black, Indigenous, Latine, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, trans people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity, right? And to do this, we must examine the ways that our various institutions are acting as a foot of oppression, instead of truly working to eliminate disparities. So we could shift from using a needs analysis or a victim analysis to a power analysis, right? So we restore power to communities and we build community power. And so I'm not gonna take up too much time, because this is like my favorite thing to learn and try to embody. And it's such challenging but refreshing work, because transparency and accountability is a good thing. And most of our systems don't know how to share power. And there's so much transparency and lack of transparency and spinning and all of those things, right? And so I would say during these times, Julie, that we gotta stay grounded and resist and be strategic, be a Costco, not a Walmart or Target. See how messy I am? That's also, we need to continue doing this work, right? And so there are many HUD cuts and government cuts in different areas. And so looking at private funding and state and local funding, and we need to institutionalize. That means get it in writing, get it encoded, right? Cal ICH has done some wonderful work there to institutionalize participation by people most impacted in decision making, and moving away from engaging to sharing power, and coalitions. Y'all, we need to build coalitions like our life depends on it, like our democracy depends on it. And we often got so much silos. We have so many silos, right? But we really need to build a moral fusion movement where, whether it's environmental justice, whether it's the issues around immigrants or LGBTQ issues, homelessness and housing justice, all of these things are interconnected. And yes, we do our different work in our different lane, but we also need to come together, right? And the Poor People Campaign, they talk about awakening the sleeping giant. There's way more poor and working class people, right? Way more. But people are often disengaged because they gotta work so hard to make ends meet. And they're constantly being bombarded and attacked. And so how could we build a moral fusion movement, this greater solidarity, and working together across these issues, because we're gonna need the power and we're gonna need the numbers. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Lamont. So speaking of building that power, getting more people to do this work, Sabrina, I know you have a long list of things that you are a part of. And one of the things that I've always admired about you, when we served as commissioners of Alameda County's Healthcare for the Homeless Commission together, is just the clarity with which you understand how do we bring more people with lived experience into places of power, into decision making, not just to show up and be a couple names that say lived expertise representative. One of the things that I think you do so beautifully and hold so beautifully is to insist that you're in a seat of power. Can you talk a little bit about the things that you're seeing, the things you're hoping to see around how we can create more of those pathways?
Thank you. One of the things that I have seen, and I think I alluded to it earlier, is that the seats I've seen open up for people in Alameda County, and I'm hoping through the rest of California, but the ones I've been able to fill and sit in have given me my voice and showed that my voice has mattered and has allowed me to bring other people. And I think the key to filling these seats and hearing these voices is having somebody that reaches back and lets people know, hey, come here, you're gonna be heard. I have Everyone Home opened up these different boards and different pathways for individuals with lived experience to come and have a voice. And I've brought a couple of people to those boards. My own agency opened up focus groups, and with David and Healthcare for the Homeless, we did focus groups and we created letters. And being heard and seen for me caused me, and I'm just a people person, to go out and let other people know, hey, come on, let's get you on this board. Let's put you in this seat. And I've been from the Healthcare for the Homeless CAB Consumer Advisory Board. I was brought on to represent a part in Fremont. And through that involvement, I applied for and was brought on to the Care Connect peer-to-peer fellowship. And from that, we became support for the individuals during COVID that were placed in hotels. And every step of that, I learned even more how to engage people and how to stay engaged myself and to remain teachable. And then from that, oh my gosh, I applied for the Research and Equity Council for Housing and Security. I applied for, I am part of DUHOC, the Drug User Health Advisory Committee. I am part of the AB 109 CAB, Safety and not AB 109 CAB. I'm part of the AB 109 CAB for Probation and Felony Advisory Board there. I'm also part of the Safety and Justice Fellowship through Bright Star to try and address the overpopulation of jails and how we can stop that from happening so bad. So there's a lot of opportunities I've been offered, and the fact that I'm offered them, I feel with everything I've survived in my lifetime and my ability to bring people to those tables, it's kind of my assignment to say yes and to try and do that. And I got my very first start in any of this. As a child, my father, he came here. I'm the first generation born here. And one thing he slammed in us was education, and I've always felt comfortable at school. And I was at community college when I left the shelter. I even went while I was in the shelter. And when I moved into an SRO in Oakland, I went to Laney, and then I switched over to Berkeley City because I figured all my experience has to do something, right? And one of the job developers there said, hey, would you like to be on the ground floor of a street medicine team for your internship hours? I said, sure. And then 2.5 years later, when I graduated and my time there was up, I ended up being offered a part-time position at HEPAC. And one of the things when I did the street medicine that became my passion was chronic conditions for individuals that were either on the street or involved in substance use. And then when I went to work for HEPAC, I was home. I was home because the interactions I had with the needle exchange during my own journey through addiction was where I felt most seen, most heard, most loved. And I've been able to bring that into what I do with people, for people. And one thing about individuals that are living through and have lived through as an addiction is, man, they have some genius ways to get what they need. The intelligence and just the drive and everything they've had to do daily to survive can be turned into problem-solving skills within the issues that we all have. And when we put that power to use and give them the voice that they need to know they have, it's unstoppable, the changes that can be made. And I'm not arrogant, but look at what I've been able to do, and the people in just being where I'm at, I've been able to reach back and bring them to the tables to make change. And the pathways, there's so many pathways. The California Department of rehabilitation, the community college. Every single community college has a department dedicated to people that were in custody and returning. There's same thing with the universities in California. There's so many different pathways, and people don't realize that some of the things they're offered when they take part of these services are not punitive. And I think that something I learned with my Care Connect fellowship is that it's not just code switching, it's identifying with people. People know when they're with their tribe. They know when they're being told the truth, and they know when they're cared about, and when, and to have me be able to communicate with people. And I had people at my exchange that were participants that saved my life when I was going through stuff with my teenager. They came, and my own family would be like, oh, you need to not call him an Uber, you need to not do this. But I had individuals that I would love going to work that would come up and ask me, hey, how's Albert? You know, how's your son doing? Oh, well, don't get mad if he's bouncing job to job. He's working, he's finding himself. You know, I was able to have real conversations with individuals that I identified with, that were supposed to be participants and clients, but every one of them I referred to as my friend. And then in the services I provide, I had to get told by somebody with that person's nickname that they died. They were found on the tracks and they died. And I got told this nickname, and I didn't know who they were talking about. And I continued to work that evening, and then someone came and said, no, it was her. And every day, the people that I work with, that could happen. But we could also put them in a position where it doesn't have to. And I could tell her, hey, you know what? Your kids will get older, a little bit older, because of my involvement with family systems and my involvement with the stuff I've been. And my kids talk to me now. People need to know that it's possible. And if they come to my table, I'm not going to judge them. You know, you can come high, you can come not high. Sometimes I have people that come just to get a bag of food, you know, and I talk to them. I talk to everybody just as if, and if they happen to ask, you know, hey, how'd you get sober? Let me tell you, you know, and this is what I did. If you want to call me, I give everybody, they gave me a business card with a work phone number, and then they told me not to take home my work phone, so I won't tell you how many people have my personal number. And when you get case management training and some of the classes and what it says in the book, and we all know how much credence to give things that are told in books, they say don't get it personally involved. I show all my people the pictures of my kids on my phone. I show, you know, there's just things, everybody, whether they're in touch with their family or not, everybody has somebody they feel family with. There's some of the communities we have that are part of the homeless community or part of the using community. They don't live unless they connect with those around them. And if we could take that connection and channel it into the work we're doing and let them know, hey, people do want to hear what your life's like. People do want to hear, that's, you know, priceless. That's priceless. And some people are reduced to an addiction. Some people are reduced to a disability. Some people are reduced to a race. And one of my best friends, and she's a programs manager in Oakland, we sit on a board called East Bay Recovery Community Organization together. She was just a victim of some extreme homeless or racial attacks. She's a first-time home buyer. She was part of the AC Boost program. She utilized the Section 8 program all the way through to the home buyers program. Every single program we've made available as a state she utilized. And when she bought her home, it was sprayed no blacks across her fence. There was things said to her that I won't repeat, but I know we can all imagine it. And something she said to me as a service provider was, I don't see race, I see trauma. I don't see, you know, she goes, I never expected any of this, which is true. And she personally deals with some of the most serious responses that we have to through access and stuff like that. And she doesn't see race, she sees somebody that needs help. And when she got to that level and it happened to her, it's been an education for me for the last 3 weeks. I'm also taking classes at Cal State. And the race issue has been driven home. And as providers, we see a lot and we say a lot, and there's a lot of racial disparity in the different areas that we work. But then as providers, sometimes there's not. for us. So it was, you know, I got to see that, we got to see this, but we got to take a lot of the labels and put them aside and just see people as people. When someone comes to a table I sit at, I don't want to see a black person that's an addict. I want to see Sonia's voice or this person's voice, and then we hear it from that lens. Thank you, sorry.
I think we can all agree that Sabrina is the case manager we want for the people in our communities. So we're going to shift gears a little. You know, I think one of the things that we've been talking about here is sort of the way we are all sort of using our lived experience in our work. And one of the things that really came up in our conversations was really around that piece that you had talked about building that power, right? And I look to you, Margot, I look to you, Ocean Blue Coast, around this piece. And, you know, Ocean Blue Coast, I think about the conversation we had about how in the times we're in, you had made a point that, like, with all the options of all the things we're gonna deal with, we can't stop investing and organizing of the people that we are most closely affiliated with, of the folks that are in this room as well. Can you talk a little bit more about your thinking on how you've been doing organizing in the Bay Area, and yeah.
Absolutely, and I failed to mention in my introduction, the most important thing that in my life is my 17-year-old Shih Tzu Maltese. He's right here next to me. And then I wanted to also give a shout out to Mission Housing because I live in a Mission Housing building. So shout out to Mission Housing, hey. So what can we do? So there was an amazing community organizer, Jazzy Collins, with Senior Disability Action. HomeRise has the Jazzy Collins Apartments. And Jazzy was really known about saying, what are we going to do about this? So what are we going to do about this? We need to invest in organizing and leadership development of people that are directly impacted by our policies, the architectural designs that we're making, our strategic planning, and our legislative actions. There's not going to be a lot of money to do this, so we're going to have to be really creative about how we are giving voice to communities impacted by our work. One of the ways that you can start doing that is by having Know Your Rights workshops, educating your communities about how their rights to be able to organize in their communities, and encouraging tenant associations and supporting leaders. It's also about sharing our own power. So if you're an executive or a director and you're meeting with an elected official, if you're bringing somebody who's impacted with you, you're not only informing that elected official of the impacts of the work, but you're also creating a bridge relationship between the impacted individual and their elected official, which is really important to creating power for people with lived experience. It's also about having direct input of people that, especially people that are experiencing homelessness, in the systems and service provisions that we have around affordable housing. For instance, did you know that every time you ask a formerly homeless person the years or dates that they were homeless, or how many years that they were homeless, you are re-traumatizing them. And limiting that in intakes or changing how you answer that, how you ask that question with a trigger preface is something that people with lived experience would tell you when you made the form in the first place. So having impacted stakeholders will also give you extra capitalist solutions to market-driven problems. Consider the skills and problem solving required to survive homelessness. The market doesn't work from the top down, so perhaps we should try the solutions that impacted people have. And a lot of us in affordable housing could save a lot of money by utilizing focus groups of people with direct experience and stipends instead of high-cost consultants, because the people with the direct experience are going to be able to get you direct to the solutions and cut the middleman out. Creating space and supporting leadership of tenants and impacted constituents on boards and commissions. It's really important if you're an affordable houser, if you're working with people that are formerly homeless, if you're working with people that are impacted by recovery, you need to be directly informed by those people at the decision-making table. So spending the extra time and supports to make sure that not only is somebody with direct lived experience seated on your board or commission, but they have the supports to be able to succeed and help inform the work that we're doing. Sorry, I have my notes here because I have a lot that I wanted to say. Absolutely give space and grace to the community building power of sharing our collective struggles and successes. There's an individual transformative power that happens being a part of collective change, and that's kind of why we are part of building power with affordable housers and formerly homeless people and people struggling through poverty trauma, is because there's a healing power of transformation that happens when you join your peers, you join people with lived experiences, and you push for change. Thanks.
Margot, I feel like that segue was created for you.
Yes, mine is just much more simpler. I have a good friend of mine, Constance Pierre, she told me, have intentional conversations. I go up to people and I say hi, and I'll just talk about their day, and then I'll slip in about run and what do they think about housing, and what are their thoughts on solving homelessness. So mine is much more simple. We, Resident United Network has a website, and then they'll tell me, Margot, hey, during our conversation, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get started. I said, well, here's the website for Run. This is how you do it. This is how I educated myself. This is how I empowered myself. You have a lot of like-minded individuals that will help you, uplift you, and encourage you. Run is an awesome organization because, like I said, without them, I wouldn't have known what an assembly bill was. I wouldn't have known what a Senate bill was. And with this organization, it takes individuals that have experienced homelessness or not, and it takes you through everything. You get to come on events like this, and you get to meet and network with people and learn so much more about what you can do and so much more about how to help and, get your hands dirty. You have to tend something, and like any plant, you got to water it so it can grow. You got to tend to the soil to let it grow. So with this being said, I have intentional conversations with people of all walks of life. I go up to the homeless and I ask them, because you got to think these are someone's loved ones. It's an aunt, it's an uncle, it's a sister, it's a brother, it's a mother, it's a cousin. These people have a story to tell, and they're not just out there because they want to be. A lot of them are trying to shrink and not be noticed. A lot of them. So with that being said, these organizations that I'm with, the networks that I'm with, are really wonderful ways to start if nobody knows how to start. I know there's a lot of people in here that are with all, case management and everything, and I'm just little me, but I've myself, with all the knowledge that I've gathered from coming to these conferences and going to some summits, and I've learned how to help. I helped 2 individuals get into housing, and I told them, this is how you do it. This is what you do, because they weren't blind spotters. We really have to also talk about blind spotters like myself. I'm a blind spotter. I didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't fit any criteria, anything. We have to also work on changing everything that we do and how we prioritize people. Well, this group here, that group there. We're all one group. We're all struggling. We're all unhoused. And it's just really hard when you are out on the street and they say, well, you need to fix this. You need to fix your addiction. before you get into housing. You need to, fix your mental health before you get into housing. That's not fair. That's not fair. How can they fight off something if they don't have a decent place to sleep, clean up, feel good about themselves? They need to be able to fight their demons behind closed doors just like everybody else.
So I'm told that we need to close. And I want to first ask the audience to give our panelists another round of applause. We have about a minute. Does anyone have a hot take on one thing? Oh, Ocean Blue's got a hot take. So for this audience here, we've got a room full of people doing amazing work who are in solidarity with us in the fight for housing justice. What is one thing that is most helpful to continue to lift up lived experience of homelessness? We got an Ocean Blue over here.
Absolutely, there is disability rights and other social justice saying nothing about us without us.
I think that's a good place to close, and thank you so much.